WCW Monday Nitro, also November 20th of the year 2000. So we got a recap package. And I don't know if it's the network's fault or WCW's fault, but there's piped in music that's totally drowning out all audio.
Yes.
So I have zero idea what's going on.
Really, really bad.
And then the commentary comes in really super loud. Eventually, I'm able to tell there was a show in Germany. I'm not sure if it was Thunder or not, but it was definitely in Germany, where the Boogie Knights were challenging for the World Tag Team titles, and somebody had a brilliant plan, which is, we have one German guy. It's Alex Wright. We'll put him in a tag match for the tag titles. We'll have his partner get hurt, so he has to go it alone. He'll beat the Natural Born Thrillers by himself. He'll raise those tag belts high, and the place will go crazy. That's what happened.
Yeah.
And it worked.
They claim Disco has been severely injured.
Wait a second. The hometown boy won in his hometown?
Yes.
And the crowd popped?
And they were very happy.
That's crazy.
And probably decided, hey, let's get tickets for the next show.
This will never work.
Yes.
I hope they waited to buy their tickets.
That's true.
Lex Luger wants a match from Mike Sanders. We're not told here what it is.
Did you do a count of how many Sanders segments were on this show?
Not that, but I did note that he is on this show more than like Triple H is on Raw.
I think that he was in every segment.
Yeah, and some were better than others, but his bad segments are bad. So, okay, why don't we start it right now? Mike Sanders won. I'll start.
All right, I'll talk about this. You start the file here.
Mike Sanders.
All right, we know what the name of the file is.
Appearances.
So Palumbo rushes in, says O'Hara's been laid out. O'Hara was supposed to get a tag title shot. So because O'Hara's been beaten up, they look at him, and they're like, well, fuck it. Now it'll be the perfect event tonight. That's literally what they did.
Now, it's actually more than that, because they find O'Hara laid out. Sanders says, you got to be ribbing me. Then he runs back to his desk to cut a promo where now the camera's facing on him directly.
Yes.
I'm counting this as his second Sanders appearance.
No. We don't need that, Vinny. All right. So he goes back in and he announces that Palumbo and Stasiak are getting the shot. Then, correct me if I'm wrong, I could have sworn he said they will face Alex Wright and a partner of my choosing.
That's what he said.
Did he not say that?
That's exactly what he said.
Okay, so then, like, the very next segment is Alex Wright going to find a partner of his choosing? They couldn't even keep that straight.
Well, technically, he goes to Chronic.
But he's looking around for a partner.
Well, I was looking to buy their help. He says he's on the phone with Disco, and he says he doesn't know who his partner is. He doesn't say, be my partner, Chronic.
See.
He says, help me.
He wants protection.
Because he's back on this show. He's no longer a hero.
I apologize.
Again, Brian, there's enough to make fun of.
I
here.
apologize.
The stuff they get.
I apologize. How many times do I have to say it here?
One more.
I'm sorry. And then he signs Booker versus Luger for the main event.
Yes, this is the match obviously Luger wanted, which we didn't know about at first. Jamie Noble versus Yang. Madden has a shocking revelation that Jamie Noble is a white guy.
And he's pretty fly.
You know, I talk about this all the time. I don't want to be a broken record, but Jamie Noble was so awesome here.
Yep.
He was 23 years old, and he had been in the business for 4 years. Find me one 23-year-old who has been in the business for 4 years, trained at the WWE Performance Center. I'm not talking Tyler Bate. I'm talking trained from scratch at the Performance Center. Find me one guy 4 years in at 23 that's a quarter as good as Jamie Noble was here. Sounds to me like somebody's doing something wrong.
So Leia Meow, who I had zero memory of her doing anything physical other than dancing, did a diving Rana off the apron at one point. So all the other leftover shards of 3 Count the Young Dragons are all out doing stuff. I can no longer keep track of who's on whose team or who's feuding with who.
That's fair.
They're all out there doing stuff. I didn't write down the finish, but I believe Jamie Noble won.
Jamie Noble won with a sunset flip after a flip dive to the outside, and then 2 Count attacked him. Evan Courageous helped clear the ring. Mm-hmm. I like this. This was great.
This was very good.
Lex Luger has a meeting with Ric Flair. He comes out, looks into the camera, and he's very happy.
Do you know Noble's only 42 right now?
Well, I could have. You said he's 23. It's 19 years later.
42 years old.
Here's Steiner apparently losing to Sting on Thunder, but then putting him in a straitjacket and beating him with a pipe. Right.
So I was initially angry because Sting beats Steiner, and then Steiner beats him and breaks every bone in his body, according to the announcers.
Yeah.
Like, why did Sting even win?
Don't know.
But then I figured it out later. Steiner's going to win the title, and then Sting can challenge him based on this.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was like a straight jacket on a pole match or something.
They were booking something insane like this.
Yeah.
So Alex is on the phone. He arrives. He tells Disco he has to defend the titles. He does not know who his partner is or who he's working. He approaches Chronic, whose tagline is, they're all about breaking necks and cashing checks.
Thank you.
Chronic tells him they will not take checks.
That is exactly what happened.
Yes.
Well, to be fair,
Okay.
I'm going to defend Chronic. Okay?
All
right. So if you came up to me and you said, Brian, next Friday, I need you to beat Rob's ass. It's his birthday. I'll give you a check for $500. I'll say, okay. If you come up to me and say, it's Rob's birthday today, I need you to beat his ass, I'll give you a check for $500. How am I supposed to know your check is going to clear? See what I'm saying?
So they didn't trust his check.
Yes. They'll cash checks, but the check needs to clear before they do the deed.
Interesting.
This guy comes up, he wants him to do the deed tonight, and he's going to give him a check.
Plus, it could be in Deutschmarks.
They would be foolish.
I can only imagine what the exchange rate was like in year 2000.
It could have been a thing.
Yeah. So then
yes, Rob.
By the way, I weren't sure if you were aware of this or not, but my birthday is actually coming up, and it just so happens I was hoping for an ass kicking this year.
Oh, see? So. I knew it. I did that on purpose.
At this point, the filthy animals walk up to Alex Wright. They throw garbage at him, and he turns around and walks away. I'm not making that up.
Speaking of cashing checks, do you know that one time I got a check from ECW Press for my book?
Oh.
And they're a Canadian company.
Okay.
And the bank wouldn't let me cash the check, even though the check said in U.S. funds. So it is possible they could have been skeptical of Alex Wright's check.
So Flair comes out for a promo, and he's putting over WCW in their world tour for World Championship Wrestling. Says Shivani did something in Europe he's not allowed to talk about. Now they're here in Georgia, a great show, great state, great fans.
I hope Tony's wife wasn't listening. I have no idea what it was, but if my wife were listening and Flair came out and said that, I'd be in trouble.
Yeah. Then Flair says Mike Sanders has booked Booker T versus Lex Luger for the world title, and I couldn't change it if I wanted to.
Don't go for a walk, Vinny.
Time for a walk again.
Hey.
You came out last week, Mr. Flair, and you said Mike Sanders can book matches, but I can overrule him whenever I want. Mm-hmm. What happened in the last 7 days?
Vinny, what about the fact that he says, I can't change the match, and then he, changes the match?
I don't know. Why is this so hard?
I don't know.
It's bad enough they have to have 1,000 heel authority figures. Can we at least have a consistency with who's actually in charge? And this is something WWE has done 1,000 times too. Just tell me who's in charge so I know what's the totem pole. So Jarrett interrupts. We get a 5-hour bit with Jeff Jarrett and Ric Flair where Jarrett says he knows who impregnated Stacy Keibler. I know who knocked up your future former daughter-in-law, he says. David Flair comes out. And Jarrett says I think he said he had a party going on when Stacy was knocking at his door in a teddy with a shopping bag. He took her in, kicked everyone else out of his party, laid down next to her. The rest is history, I think he said. I am the one who got Stacy pregnant. The next morning, she was gone. All she left behind was that shopping bag. And when I looked, that shopping...
How long have we been talking about this?
Half as long as he was.
The point of this is, after all that, he realizes it's bullshit. He says this is fake. Yes. It didn't really happen.
And then he hit David Flair with a guitar. What was the point of this?
I have no... you know what? I think they're going to do Flair and Jarrett, or they wanted to do Flair and Jarrett at Starrcade, so this was like the beginning of it, but at fucking Starrcade, what?
I don't know.
How about we get through the pay-per-view Sunday first?
Yes. Oh, yeah, did we mention this is the go-home show for Mayhem?
Yes.
That seems relevant.
And then Bagwell comes out.
Buff Bagwell runs
Jarrett.
out. He attacks Jarrett, who turns around and beats his ass.
Yeah, this sucks.
Because Buff's the worst babyface ever.
This sucked.
He comes back, Buff does. He goes to throw Jeff off the stage, and Jeff is like that guy getting chokeslammed by Eric Angle. He looks off the stage, he jumps down, he lands on his feet. Kevin Nash arrives. He bends over to look at some tape, and then stands back up. And I had to go this tape is on screen for 4 frames, but I was so curious I had to go look. All it does is it's just like catering with an arrow going this way and sign in with an arrow going that way. For some reason, Kevin Nash, I guess he had to know where the sign-in sheet was. Fit Finlay is there. Nash tells Fit to tell the Thrillers that Nash is here and he's not alone.
They're trying so hard to make you think
Yes.
that he's going to show up with Scott Hall.
Yes.
Scott Hall's going to be his partner. Can you imagine? I mean, yes, I can imagine.
All right, Pamela Paulshock interviews Team Canada. I had to watch this 5 times to understand what I thought the matches are going to be, and I'm still not sure I was right about it. So, as soon as she starts talking, Duggan in the background covers up his mouth and bugs his eyes out. I know at one point he was reprimanded for doing too much stuff in the background when Lance was talking. I'm wondering if this was his way of showing them up for telling him to shut up.
I see.
Doing this speak no evil pose. So Pamela says it's Elix Skipper and Hacksaw versus Quei and Meng. Elix then announces that Sanders has chosen him to team with Alex Wright. So he's busy, and Lance will take the place in his match. I thought, which one? Is he taking the place against with Alex, or taking the place of this match here with Duggan? I don't know. So Lance says Duggan will teach Meng some manners. He will give the Hicks from Augusta a wrestling lesson. Major Guns does her one line, and Pam calls her a bitch. Right?
I'm pretty sure
Running out of steam here.
Lance drew the shortest straw on this match.
I don't even know. I can't keep track anymore.
Okay.
So it's Alex Wright and Elix Skipper versus Sean Stasiak and Chuck Palumbo. Scott Hudson says, everything on the show left me bewildered and confused and irritated. Scott Hudson says, nobody attacked Sean O'Hare. He's not buying it, but somebody did.
What?
That's what I did.
I wasn't paying attention.
And I rewound it 5 times trying to figure out what the hell he was talking about.
Let's cut to the chase. Alex has the win. Ray and Kidman interfere. Ray and the Filthy Animals interfere.
Yeah.
They hit the Kid Crusher. Perfect Event gets the pin.
Yeah.
Who are the baby faces?
Yeah.
Who are the heels?
Yeah.
Why are the Filthy Animals mad at Alex Wright?
I don't know. Maybe he didn't sell the garbage backstage big enough. I believe, to answer your question, Brian, in this show, they're all heels.
Okay.
I think. Jimmy Hart and 2 out of 3 count.
God, allow me. Jimmy Hart is backstage. He's been doing this deal where he challenges random radio DJs to fight, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So they cut backstage, and Jimmy Hart starts to talk, and he's got 2 count behind him. And all of a sudden, Mancow rushes in, waffles everybody with a garbage can, and they set it up so 2 count would step in front of Jimmy, so the can would hit both of them, but they'd all fall down, so they didn't have to hit Jimmy Hart. They all fall down, and security rushes in to tear them apart. All right? Now, on the surface, just a goofy angle. But let's stop for a second. This Mancow flew to wherever they're at.
Augusta.
Georgia.
From Chicago.
He managed to somehow get backstage. He camped out, he hid, and he waited until Jimmy Hart was doing his interview, which apparently he knew he was going to do, so that he could just rush in and hit him with a trash can. I couldn't buy a second of this.
I can't believe how much time in your life you've dedicated to this stupid thing.
Because every now and then I think, if this were real, what?
Yeah.
And that's all I could think during this segment.
Weren't you led to believe that Mancow bought time on Nitro for this?
It did say this portion paid for by Mancow or
Right.
something like that. Yeah.
Not to mention, they're already wrestling on Sunday.
Yeah.
Why did this asshole fly all the way to the building, hide backstage, get a garbage can, wait for Jimmy Hart to do his deal, and then waffle him with one trash can?
You'd have to ask Mancow.
He couldn't just wait till Sunday.
Pamela Paulshock interviews Quei and Meng.
Oh my God. All you need to know about this segment, this is the only notable thing. Meng speaks English. Now, the funny thing is, Meng spoke English like 2 months ago. Mm-hmm. So, like, we've seen it. But Tony Schiavone is, like, so burnt out of this that even though he calls every one of these shows, he can't remember that Meng has spoken English before. So Meng starts to cut a promo in English, and Tony is so flabbergasted that he says, "Oh my God, can you believe what we're hearing? He's talking over Meng speaking English." He's so shocked. Meng vows to straighten Hacksaw's crooked eye because they're doing a tag match tonight.
He's gonna rip out the cross eye, straighten it permanently. Quei, by the way, says Primetime has been ducking him. This will make him angry, so he's backing out of this match and putting General Erection in.
Huh?
God forbid he get mad.
Elix just wrestled.
That's what Quei said. All I know is they hyped some matches and then kept changing them over and over again. I had no idea what was ever going on this show.
And for some reason, Quei faces Sanders for the Cruiserweight title at Mayhem.
Yeah.
All right, whatever. It's like every Survivor Series match. I just don't know why they're happening.
Speaking of which, Mike Sanders is back on TV. That's appearance number 2. Sanders and Jindrak are doing a promo. It's awful. The worst comedy. That's not comedy. It's so bad that in the middle of it, Tony Schiavone has to mutter, Mike Sanders talking about a match with Quei at Mayhem. Because no one knew what the hell he was talking about.
They did have to explain what was going on.
Then we see Reno. Reno speaks. There's a reason he doesn't speak very often. As Reno's congratulating Palumbo on winning the tag belts, and he goes to get his bag, Vito jumps Reno with a bat, lays him out, and says, "Marie says hello." And Mark Madden says, "Who the hell's Marie?" And Tony Schiavone says, "That's Vito's sister."
Yeah, she was on one show for one instant.
If you go back and watch this, Vito's bat clearly bending before it actually makes contact with Vito's head.
Magic.
Yeah.
Here I wrote, I hate the show. The Battle Dome dudes are at ringside. This is Pamela Paulshock's question for Alex Wright.
You do that, then I'm going to answer.
Alex Wright, not only did the Filthy Animals cost you the match against the perfect event, but you also lost the tag team titles.
Yes.
That's her question.
So Alex Wright explains.
To rub salt in the wound.
He is upset that he got dropped and WCW didn't do anything about it. Nobody cares about me, he says. WCW is scared about the Boogie Knights.
Yes.
I talked to Disco on the phone. Disco is mad.
Really mad.
He's really mad. And since WCW won't do anything about this, these dildos will get their revenge. I want the Filthy Animals in a handicap match at Mayhem.
You're paraphrasing there.
Mm-hmm.
So in a handicap match, he's talking him and Disco against all the Filthy Animals or him alone?
I assume.
Anyway, point was, he came off as such a babyface here. He's been totally screwed. He's pissed off about it. He rightly points out that nobody else is doing anything about it. So he wants to fight all these guys by himself. I think he's supposed to be a heel.
We have more shouting with the Battle Dome guys, and out comes Rick Steiner.
Oh, this actually was great.
Yes.
Rick has the Battle Dome belt. I didn't even know there was a Battle Dome belt. He explains, I went to L.A. I walked out right in the middle of your show. I took your belt, and there wasn't a damn thing you could do about it. If you want some, come get. This was like the best Rick Steiner promo. Remember we were talking about how I wouldn't have put the title on Rick Steiner in 1988?
Yeah.
I'd have put the title on that Rick Steiner.
In the year 2000.
This badass T-Money hits the ring. Rick Steiner beats the shit out of him.
I'm watching Rick Steiner fight Terry Crews.
Yes.
The other guys hit the ring.
Mind.
They beat up him. They leave him laying. This was a great angle.
Who got bloody? Did you see Steiner's hand was bleeding?
I'm pretty sure he punched Terry
somebody's
Crews
face.
right in the nose.
Okay. Well,
So, now before all this, Brian, as Rick Steiner's making his way to the ring with the Battle Dome belt over his shoulder, Mark Madden says, and here again, I had to rewind 5 times and quote it all to make sure that I know what's going on. If Luger beats Booker for the title, Goldberg gets a title shot at Mayhem. If Goldberg wins the title, then he's the champ. He calls the shots, and he doesn't have to worry about his winning streak broken to maintain that point.
They totally blew off the streak.
So it seems to be Goldberg would want Luger to win tonight.
Yes.
So to recap, it's Luger Booker tonight to set up Luger versus Goldberg and Steiner versus Booker at the pay-per-view. But those matches are going to happen no matter who is champion. So Steiner has to make sure Booker walks out of this building as champion if he wants his title shot. It's all very confusing.
Yes.
That's my point. The show...
My point was that they spent so much time building up the Goldberg streak.
Yeah.
Badly, I might add. Mm-hmm. And they're still doing it on this show. And Flair has flat out said, I don't give a shit about this streak. I'm just going to give you a championship match.
That happens. Yes, and somewhere in here, Scott Hudson referred to the Battle Dome crew as pseudo-shooters. Sean Stasiak is ordering a pizza when Reno demands a match with Vito. Sanders vows to take care of it, and then it's not enough that Sanders, appearance number 3, pardon me. It's not enough that we have to hear the stupid SOL thing every single time they're on TV. Now they must also say "set it off" 500 times. I'm leaning towards the Natural Born Thrillers being the worst faction of all time. I hate them.
Aces and eights.
I didn't have to deal with SOL.
Dude, the Forgotten Sons.
Better. I would rather watch the Forgotten Sons at this point.
The Forgotten Sons were on Raw last night. I don't think any of the announcers had any idea who they were. I don't think their names were mentioned
The Forgotten Sons are merely neutral in every single way. The Natural Born Thrillers outright irritate me.
They are irritating.
A clear negative. That's
for sure.
Hugh G. Rection gives his men a pep talk, tries to get them fired up, and they all agree to take no prisoners. Kevin Nash does a promo. He has 13 months and 10 days left on his contract. He's going to do nothing over that time but have the time of his life. He drove here from Atlanta with a good friend of his. Tells Sanders to bring his jacked up greenhorns out. He and his partner want a shot of the belts. Mike Sanders, number 4, agrees. Says Kevin Nash is not popular backstage. Kevin Nash says, Chief J. Strongbow once told me. It's the year 2000. Chief J. Strongbow's getting name dropped. You can make friends in this business or you can make money, and I made money.
So, hold on a second. So they're going back and forth, and Nash says, I've got a partner. And Sanders says, nobody likes you. And Nash's comeback is, I can make friends or make money, and I make money?
Yeah. Right. His comeback is, you're right, nobody likes me.
And then he brought out his friend.
And then
well, not yet. There's more.
Sorry.
Sanders insults the fans. Kevin Nash makes fun of him for using cheap heat. Sanders says, what? I didn't hear you. And Nash is like, you're using cheap heat. This is a death promo. So finally Nash says, you guys think you can fight with me when you can't even hang with me in the bar.
The fuck does one thing have to do with the other?
I don't know, but for some reason Mike Sanders was furious. And he sprints down the aisle, and Tony Schiavone says, that upset Sanders?
This show's so bad.
It's a horrible
I apologize for what I said at the beginning of this show. This show sucks.
It's a horrible show. So DDP hits the ring. It's 2 men beating up 5, and it's not even like DDP's doing diamond cutters left and right. They're just doing moves and beating them all up, and finally Jindrak, I think, is left alone and eats one.
Mm-hmm. You know, I got to give him credit. I can't believe I'm going to do this, but I got to give him credit. They told you who the partner was on this show.
Sure.
I fully expected for them to tease that it was Scott Hall all the way to the pay-per-view to make you plop down your money, and only then, after they got your money, reveal it's actually DDP.
It would have made perfect sense.
I have to give them credit for telling you who actually was going to be on the show and not being assholes.
We then get a recap of Major Guns turning on MIA. Now, I could go back over these one by one.
Please don't.
I will just tell you, this was the 12th consecutive non-wrestling segment on this show. Then, Lance comes out for his match, but before the match, he cuts a promo, and if you want to count that as a 13th segment, I won't argue. We get the match. If you have forgotten, and I could not blame you for forgetting, it's Lance Storm and Hacksaw Duggan versus Huge Erection and Meng. Scott Hudson referred to Major Guns as Queen of the Caribou Hoof, which I can't believe you can say on TV.
It's like Moose Knuckle, Rob.
So Lance buries the U.S. for needing 2 weeks to do an election. It's just counting, he says. Ming comes out. Tony Schiavone says, I still can't believe he said this. This is Meng. He will eat. I can't say it. This is Meng. He will eat you now. He will eat you now, is what he said.
Yeah.
This show's so dumb.
He's finally been broken. Finally. That was what did it. You're so lucky you're not watching wrestling today.
This is Meng. He will eat you now. Eat you.
Yeah. Well, he will.
So,
Yes, Rob.
Am I the only one noticing that his face is almost the same color as his shirt right now?
He looks like Brock wrestling.
so they're doing this match, and Tony begins to do like fantasy booking. He tells a story about how Lance brought Meng back. Meng disappointed him, so Lance turned on him, which is something you don't want to do. When did any of this happen?
He made it up.
He made this. Is
I mean,
a
it could
story
happen on Thunder.
Tony Schiavone made up in his mind.
There
to
are
make the
some
booking
dumb
make sense.
stories that took place on Thunder, Vinny.
Someone had the bright idea in this match to make Meng the Meng in peril.
Oh, yeah, he was selling. Ming!
Meng. Huge Erection gets the coldest hot tag ever. Somebody hits somebody with a flagpole. MIA is out there brawling with Team Canada. And Erection pins Duggan with a schoolboy. A wretched match.
I thought he pinned Neelix. Who cares?
Doesn't matter. It just wasn't in the match.
Yeah, so he pinned... Oh, yeah. Who cares? When I review this show, Vinny, I thought nothing of the fact that he might have pinned a man who wasn't in the match.
That's true. Mm-hmm. That's true. Shane Douglas and Jeff Jarrett are having a chat backstage. Mike Sanders, number 5, joins the announce desk.
Is he in every fucking segment I wrote in all caps?
So, I know it was a tasteless joke, but was he, like, knocked out cold in that brawl with DDP? Because he's out there and he's terrible. Mike Sanders, how do you have this tag match now? You got to face Kevin Nash and DDP. I don't want to talk about it.
They doesn't want to talk about it.
Do you want to talk about anything else?
No.
Do you have a point? What was he out there for?
Let's talk about what was good.
Now, I don't know what he's out there for. So, he does eventually say they've got a young hotshot coming out, and he's got something in store for this young hotshot, and then out comes Quei. Record scratch. I've been waiting for this moment for a while for this match. Now, I was worried in my mind this may have happened on Thunder.
No.
And I think the reason I thought that is because some point in the past month or two, Nitro switched to blue ropes. So when I saw the blue ropes, I think I associated it with Thunder. But when Quei came out, and Commissioner Mike Sanders was mad at Quei, and we didn't know what Quei was doing out here, there was a mystery opponent, I thought, oh my God, this may be it. Mm-hmm. This may be the key, the moment in WCW in 2000. And then Bill Goldberg's music hit. Whatever the opposite of taking a walk is, I guess it's sitting there in rapt attention.
You buckled up.
I did. I buckled up, yes. Bill Goldberg versus Quei. It's etched in my brain, so I knew everything that happened. When it happened live in the year 2000. I have not for 1 second forgotten a single frame of this match. Bill Goldberg comes out. He's spitting, snarling. Quei knows he's got one shot. Is to catch this guy off guard. So as Goldberg begins to...
May I add that Goldberg's thinking about all that fucking glitter that was on him last week on Thunder.
Mm-hmm. I hadn't thought of that.
No glitter this week.
No, or ever again, I'm sure. As Goldberg gets in the apron, Quei jumps him. He does like 2 or 3 elbows. And then Goldberg kind of like slips through the ropes. Quei runs to hit the other ropes and do a springboard. And he had some spot where he did this. It was into a kick or a dive or whatever. Yeah. He runs across the ropes, does a springboard, and bounces back and spins him around in midair. As he is doing this, Bill Goldberg climbs into the ring, preps every muscle in his body, from the smallest toes to the top of his head, and he dashes forward, and he cuts Quei in half with a spear. Mm-hmm. the most brutal, awesome thing. Quei's in midair coming down, and then he's going back up because he's been hit so damn hard. The referee jumps high in the air. All the fans throw their hands in the air. Quei's head goes spinning off into the crowd. And then as Goldberg gets up, he's snarling, spitting, stomping, fire's breathing out his nose. I watched this over and over and over, and then I made a GIF of it, and I just watched that GIF for like 5 minutes. It's the most beautiful thing. I was weeping tears of joy.
If Quei had been wearing glitter,
Yes.
there would have been a glitter silhouette.
It would have looked like the Death Star blowing up. That would have been even better. Kind of sad, actually.
So, for what it's worth, he jackhammers him and pins him.
Tony Schiavone is going even crazier than you are because Goldberg speared him out of his boots. His boots literally go flying.
That's the Sanders spot.
Ah,
That's to come.
Yeah.
that's next, yes.
Now, for mathematical record-keeping purposes, I want it down. Quei versus Goldberg on the November 20th episode of Nitro in the year 2000. 8 stars. So then, Goldberg goes to Sanders, who is at the announce desk, and Goldberg tells him, I fight my battles, I don't fight yours. And he starts to leave, but out comes Ric Flair, who stops Goldberg from leaving and says, come this way, franchise. Must have pissed off Shane some of the fierce. So Flair says, Mike Sanders has a problem being a commissioner and a wrestler at the same time. We all know you put Quei in the ring with Goldberg to soften him up for your match with Quei at Mayhem on Sunday. Well, we're going to do things fair. We're going to make everything equal. Mike Sanders, you are a wrestler, and you are next. Goldberg's very happy about this. He grabs Mike Sanders. He throws him into the ring. Hits him with a pump handle slam, so you know he means business. The greatest finisher in all of wrestling. Then the spear and jackhammer are overkill at this point. And here, Tony was so happy about Sanders getting speared out of his shoes. It's a cliche, and it happened. Goldberg won, if you didn't know that yet. Here is Pamela Paulshock's question for Booker T. WCW champion Booker T. Lex Luger went to both Mike Sanders and Ric Flair and pulled it off. A match with you tonight. Now, do you think Goldberg will get involved?
Great question.
I suppose. Maybe it's just her delivery, or maybe it's the way she addressed him as WCW champion Booker T.
Well, she needs to tell the viewers who he is, what he is. Asked a decent question. Way better than we get today.
That's fair. So, last week, Booker hit somebody with a chair. I think it was Sting. Anyone?
I don't know.
Bueller?
I mean,
Bueller?
Probably.
I was
Sting always can
expecting
speed up.
an explanation for why or
Oh,
what.
yeah, at the end of the show.
Yes.
No, nothing.
Nothing at all.
Well, it could have been on Thunder. But, I mean, we should be filled in.
A little bit of follow-up.
We should have been filled in.
Booker doesn't care about 4% body fat, whether it's Goldberg or Steiner or Luger. He warns Goldberg not to get involved. And don't hate the player, hate the damn game.
All right, let me take over here. Because aside from Goldberg killing Quei, what follows is, honest to God, my favorite thing on this show. Shane Douglas and Tori Wilson come out. And first, they just do this cheap heat promo for like an hour, calling the people inbreds, the whole 9 yards. Then we get Shane Douglas versus Buff Bagwell. I'm sure you both fell asleep. For whatever reason, I watched this match, and it actually was a really good match. It was a very simple story, which is that Buff Bagwell broke his neck and came back. And so Shane Douglas worked over his bad neck. And he worked over his neck, and he put him in neck holds. Unlike today in WWE where, someone has a bad leg, so someone puts him in a fucking chin lock. He worked over his bad neck. Buff Bagwell made a big comeback. Tori interfered to set up the heat. Then she tried to interfere again at the end, but Buff thwarted it the second time. The heels run into each other. Buff hits a DDT. Buff goes up top for the blockbuster. Jarrett runs down to stop him, but Shat makes the save. Buff then hits the blockbuster and pins Shane Douglas. It was a totally simple babyface versus heel match. The psychology made sense. The fans were into it. There was a logical conclusion. There was a clean pin. This was like the best thing on the show, except for Jamie Noble. That was like a better athletic match.
And Goldberg.
But that I said besides Goldberg,
Okay,
you idiot.
got it.
But I mean, the Jamie Noble match was just like two guys doing a lot of great moves. It's not like there was a story to it or anything. It's like one guy used to be Asian, now he's white. He's facing his former partner. They do a bunch of moves. One guy wins. And he looked good doing it. This was like a pro wrestling match. This was this show's version of Chris Benoit versus Steve Austin. Not nearly as good, but you know what? I just want to see a goddamn pro wrestling match. And that's what this was. With a satisfying finish that made the fans happy. I liked this.
Okay, that all happened. I won't say I fell asleep, but I did not like it nearly as much as you did. And I thought the finish had way too much stuff going on. My favorite part of this is Shane Douglas has Buff Bagwell down in a neck vice. And Buff powers him up into what they now call the electric chair position, where Shane's sitting on Buff's shoulders. And Buff just falls back, and Shane falls on his back. And something went wrong. It looked okay. But next thing I know, Shane is saying something. The ref bends over to hear what Shane is saying. And Buff Bagwell from his back loudly shouts, "I'm sorry!"
Probably hit him in the nuts.
Oh, that may have been it. That makes more sense. But yes, Buff won. So then the cat calls out Shane, also insults Mark Madden, and then just has a dance party. Scott Steiner comes out for a promo. He pretends to cry, says he'd like to say he's sorry if he was, but he warned Sting he was going to hurt him. Says Flair is an old son of a bitch, still trying to screw him out of a world title. He gave Goldberg the worst defeat of his career. Goldberg don't want no more of me. And he says, a Starcade, I will say, Vini, Vidi, Vucci. And then, after mispronouncing the Latin, says that is not in Booker T's Ebonics handbook.
He buried Sting, he buried Goldberg, he buried Booker, he dropped an Ebonics line, he lost his train of thought, he couldn't remember the name of the next pay-per-view, and he lost the crowd.
All of which happened.
Okay. I want to make sure I didn't miss anything.
A bad Steiner promo.
Terrible.
So at this point, I will
think
say
he wins the title on Sunday.
This was a terrible promo, but I will say this. He did get across in the last 10 minutes of the show that the Booker T Scott Steiner championship match at the pay-per-view is also in a cage, which I did not know until he said.
Dude, all I know is he talked for like an hour, and I'm just thinking, get the fucking hook for this guy. He just keeps going on and on and on and on.
You get the hook of Scott Steiner.
And then he just goes to do commentary.
Yes. So the main event is Booker T versus the late 2000 Lex Luger, who could barely move.
Horrible.
You know what drives me crazy about the network? You can see how much time is left on the clock.
It's dragged so slowly.
When it says that there's 4 minutes left and they're doing ring intros, you're like, okay, it's going to be a screw job finish.
Dude, when it's Booker
Did you want Luger to
versus
wrestle
Lex
more?
Luger and there was 4 minutes left, I was like, thank God. Thank God, get this shit over with.
Thank you for crapping on my point. My point is, you knew what was going to happen.
And I was happy about it.
Thank God.
This is not a bug, Craig. This is a feature. So they have a god-awful match.
Horrible.
Just wretched.
Luger looked 100.
Somewhere in here, Goldberg comes out, but before he can do anything, he's problem with Steiner. Something happened to Booker. We don't even know. Lex gets a chair. He's behind Booker. Goldberg goes to throw a spear, maybe at Booker. We don't know, but Booker dodges and Lex gets speared. And then Booker T, the worst champion I've ever seen, gets the pin by doing nothing.
Hey, at least he got the pin.
I suppose that's true, but he never beats anybody. He never, ever hits his move and wins.
Did you see the kick that missed Luger by 2 feet and he still took a bump for it?
I would say he took a bump. I'm not sure how to describe. He went from his feet to his back.
Okay.
But there was a gentle rolling motion.
Man, this was not good.
No. Everyone, this is, for the most part, a horrible episode of Nitro. But you know what? I'm giving that show a thumbs up merely for the Goldberg segment.
Oh, God.
This made the rest of the 2 hours worth it.
I would say that between Jamie Noble and Jimmy Wang Yang and Rick Steiner's promo and the Shane Buff match that was basic, but I liked it, and Goldberg and Quei, I mean, that's why I thought this was a better show. But everything else really sucked.
The bad stuff was awful. I should have time-stamped the Goldberg stuff. It's roughly 2/3 of the way through the show. For those of you
People can find it. Not that hard. All right, ready?
I'm ready when you are, sir. The finishes on this show were Pin after a lot of interference and or distraction from a lot of people. Pin after interference. Pin after distraction. Clean pin in the most Goldbergian match that ever Goldberged. Clean pin in a slightly less Goldbergian match. Pin after distraction and interference fail. And pin in a terrible match after copious interference.
Man, we got through both of those quick there.
Well, there were only like 4 matches on Nitro, so.
All right, everybody, we're going to wrap it up here for today. Vinny and I will be back on Thursday.
Well, I'll probably be here on Thursday.
Vinny will be here one way.
If I do, it'll be on the phone.
All right, we'll figure this out. It's coming up Thursday, and yeah, lots of stuff, so check it out. That's it. We'll talk to you again after a while.
Good night.
Adios.